in the heart of Chiang Mai's misty hills. A young craftsman named Arun lived in quiet repetition, carving wood by day and questioning life by night. Though he had skillful hands, his heart felt hollow, as if each beautifully shaped table carried an invisible weight of meaninglessness. His workshop was full of finished pieces, yet his soul felt incomplete, like a sculpture left half-formed in a forgotten corner. Each sunrise came with a sigh, and each sunset passed unnoticed, the days blurring together like brushstrokes on a canvas he didn't choose. One morning, while walking to the market, Arun noticed an old monk sitting under a Bodhi tree, eyes closed, unmoved by the bustling world around him. The monk radiated a stillness that silenced the noise in Arun's mind. He watched, transfixed, as the world slowed near the monk's breath. Curious and a little desperate, Arun approached. "Sir," he asked gently, "why do you sit here with no purpose, no work?" The monk opened his eyes, calm and ancient. "I do have purpose. I sit to be, and in being, I understand everything." Arun was puzzled. But what does that even mean, to just be? Don't you have dreams, goals, things to do? The monk smiled. Intentional living isn't about what you do, but why you do it. When your breath is aware, your life begins. The words stayed with Arun all day, like a splinter in his thoughts, subtle but persistent. That night, he sat on the floor of his home, trying to just breathe, to just exist, but his mind refused to rest. Thoughts of sales, deadlines, old regrets, missed chances. They all shouted louder in silence than they did in noise. But something told him to return to the monk the next day. He did, and this time, brought an offering of fruit and tea. They sat together in silence. Arun tried not to fidget. He watched the way the monk held his cup deliberately, reverently. The monk said, "Even tea can be sacred if your attention is pure. Most people live like sleepwalkers, awake, yet absent." That night, Arun couldn't sleep, not from restlessness, but from awakening. He felt like someone who had just realized they were dreaming. He began waking earlier, not to get ahead of work, but to watch the sun rise with presence. He noticed things he never had before: the dew on leaves, the sound of the temple bell, the smile of the bread vendor. His workshop began to transform. Where once he rushed through orders, now he lit incense before working, offering gratitude to the wood. Each piece became an offering, not a product, a quiet expression of care, attention, and humility. He began reading about the Buddha, slowly learning the eightfold path: right view, right intention, right speech. He practiced right speech by saying only what was kind, helpful, and true, even if silence was the better choice. He spoke less, listened more, and found that the silence between words often held more wisdom than the words themselves. Customers began noticing something different. "Your work feels alive," one said. "It calms my home," said another. Arun simply bowed in thanks, not out of pride, but out of reverence for the sacredness of mindful action. He stopped marketing his business aggressively. He trusted that what was done with clarity would find its way where it belonged. Sometimes he lost money, sometimes he was late, but he was never frantic. He had traded urgency for depth. One rainy afternoon, a former friend visited Ravi, a businessman, full of ambition and complaints. "I don't get it, Arun," Ravi said. "You could expand, hire workers, export globally. What are you doing here in this little hut?" Arun replied, "I am doing exactly what I choose to, fully. That is wealth to me." Ravi laughed. "Sounds like you gave up." "No," Arun said quietly. "I finally stopped running away." Over time, Arun simplified everything. He donated unused tools, gave away extra clothes, and began keeping a single bowl and mat. Minimalism wasn't his goal, but clarity was. The less clutter outside, the easier to hear within. He began writing each morning before work, not about plans, but about presence. His journal entries were simple. "Today, I breathe with care. Today, I speak gently. Today, I carve with love." One evening, he visited a nearby monastery and stayed for a 10-day silent retreat. It was the hardest thing he'd ever done. No talking, no phone, no crafting. Only breath, body, and thought. The first 3 days were torment. His back ached, his mind screamed, and he doubted every choice he'd made. But by the 5th day, something shifted. He stopped fighting the silence and began resting in it. He noticed how each thought came and went, like clouds across sky, none permanent, none him. He learned that suffering was not pain itself, but the clinging to what he wanted and the pushing away of what he feared. On the final day, as he sat beneath a tree at dawn, Tears filled his eyes, not of sadness, but of remembering something ancient and true. He returned to his village changed, not louder or prouder, but lighter, softer, fuller. He began mentoring young apprentices, not just in woodworking, but in awareness, patience, and ethics. He told them stories, not of success, but of stillness, not of getting, but of letting go. One boy asked, "But isn't it boring to live so quietly?" Arun smiled. "Only when you're chasing noise. When you slow down, you begin to hear the heartbeat of life." He taught them to bow before they touched the wood, to inhale before each cut, to exhale with gratitude. Eventually, his workshop became less of a business and more of a retreat, a refuge for those seeking calm in a hurried world. People came from far away to sit, not just by. They watched him work. Some cried without knowing why. They said his space felt like a temple, even though no Buddha statue stood, only tools and tea. He had become a living example of what he once sought, a man not driven by profit, but moved by presence. He lived simply, ate mindfully, laughed softly, and cried without shame. He had no need to escape his life because he had befriended it. Years passed. Arun grew older. His hands slowed, his eyes dimmed, but his presence deepened. On his 70th birthday, a monk from long ago returned older now too, but with the same quiet eyes. They sat together without speaking, sipping tea beneath the same Bodhi tree. Arun whispered, "I finally understand what you meant about sitting to be." The monk smiled. "And now you teach it, not with words, but with how you drink your tea." As the sun dipped below the hills, Arun closed his eyes and simply breathed. He had not become famous. He had not become rich, but he had become free. And in that quiet freedom, in that intentional life, he found the peace that the world endlessly seeks, but rarely stops to receive. He smiled into the breeze, and the breeze somehow smiled back.